So I'll call this meeting to order of the Downtown Development Authority. Vice Chair Carlisle will be taking place. Dr. Hesberg couldn't make it tonight. Leah, could you please do the roll call?
Board Member Asaf. Board Member Corbin.
Here.
Board Member Kennedy.
Here.
Board Member Kilgus. Board Member Ochop.
Here.
Board Member Richner.
Here.
Board Member Wixon.
Here.
Mayor Denner.
Here.
Chairman Hesberg. Okay, Board Member Asaf, I think I just saw you join. No, okay. And then Vice Chair Carlisle.
Here.
Okay. Director Seisman, we have a quorum if you would like to continue.
Okay, thank you, Leah. So tonight at the Downtown Development Authority, our first item of business is the consent agenda, which would be the approval of the November 24th meeting minutes. Does someone would like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Support.
Any discussion? Leah, can you please call the roll?
Board Member Corbin.
Here.
I need you to say yes or no, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Board Member Kennedy.
Yes.
Board Member Ochop.
Yes.
Board Member Richner.
Yes.
Board Member Wixon.
Yes.
Mayor Denner.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Carlisle.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you, Leah. So I have no written public comment for tonight's agenda, but I'm going to turn this over to Leah for spoken public comment in the queue. Leah, go ahead, please.
Director Seisland, at this time, I have no public comment in the queue.
Okay, thank you, Leah. Let me get my stuff. So the Downtown Development Authority passed a set of bylaws at its last meeting. Per the state law, those bylaws have to be adopted by the Grosse Pointe Park City Council. And at the City Council meeting on December 21st, the only change that was approved by the City Council was referencing a change of Section 1, subsection C, parentheses 3, where reference to the Art Center is removed. And the rest of the document is the same. So if anything else, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the DDA bylaws.
Also move.
Is there
Second.
support?
Seconded.
Any discussion?
I'll just comment, having been at the council meeting, the reason that council removed the reference to the Art Center was that it was considered too specific for bylaws. The language that already is present referencing nonprofit and profit mix of appropriate entities, I can't remember the exact language, was viewed to be more than adequate to cover the sorts of activities that the DDA would like to support in the district.
All right. That makes sense to me.
Leah, can you please call the roll?
Board Member Corbin.
Yes.
Board Member Kennedy.
Yes.
Board Member Ochop.
Yes.
Board Member Richner.
Yes.
Board Member Wixon.
Yes.
Mayor Denner.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Carlisle.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Leah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
This is Zach Asaf. I've been on a call.
Okay, hold on.
Thank you.
Would you, so Director Seisman, I guess I have a question. Do I need to go back and ask Board Member Asaf for his vote on the minutes and the bylaws?
Yes and yes on both.
Jake, is that correct?
Yeah, he's been present for the meeting. His vote should be counted, and I think that's sufficient that he's voted yes on both.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next item of business is an update on the COVID-19 support program. So I'm going to read a short memo, and I'm going to suggest a couple changes regarding the program. This was prepared by Leah Smith, who's been working diligently on our COVID-19 program. As of January 27th, we've only received 3 letters of interest requesting funding. And 2 of those businesses have been awarded those funds. Based on the 2 previously made awards, $7,000 is still available through the program. Administration would like to contact the businesses who were previously awarded those funds and ask if they have additional eligible expenses they would like to request reimbursement for. Eligible expenses would be expanded to include the following: purchase and installation of plexiglass barriers, outdoor tables and chairs, outdoor heaters, fire pit tables, tents, igloos, wind barriers, expansion of online ordering capacity, and other eligible expenses as determined by the DDA director in relation to COVID-19. At this time, the second award would need to be closed out by April 16th, 2021. And we do have a typo at the end, capped at $1,500 per business. So scratch that out. Due to the amount of expenses we still have left, I would like to be able to keep that open-ended for those businesses that would still like to apply. And I would like to ask the board if you're satisfied with the $7,000, or if you would like to, I could propose, and this would be a vote by the DDA to approve an additional $10,000 to this program for those businesses. So I'd like to hear your thoughts in regards to the program, other areas you would like to see done to help out these businesses relation to COVID-19, and if you would consider the $10,000. We can vote on that.
Nick, would it be all right? I mean, some of these items are pretty expensive and, may not be needed. Hopefully, by the end, should we add that they can be leased if possible, rather than purchased? Heaters and things like that, or do they have to buy them?
I believe they would have to be bought, but I could certainly, Jake, do you have any comment on that? I'm pretty sure they have to be bought items, Board Member Kennedy.
Yeah, let me double check. I'm not 100% sure that's the case. I'm trying to pull up my statute here.
I've got a few questions and comments. You can put me in that queue.
Nick, I can confirm that. It's hard to tell from the language of the statute if leasing would be covered, but I'll look into it.
Okay. Board Member Richner?
I saw the mayor was raising his hand. Maybe I'm happy
I
to defer to him.
I was. I just wanted to confirm, you mentioned the additional $10,000 possibility. If the DDA approves it, where would that $10,000 be reallocated from in the DDA's budget?
Yes. So in our budget right now, we have a $10,000. The line item is actually business support. So I would propose that $10,000 come from the admin business support line item and would be moved to the COVID-19 line item in the budget.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so you mind if I ask a couple questions?
Please do.
Yeah, I mean, when I first looked at this at first glance, you get the impression that maybe the program isn't needed because of the only a couple grants were made, three letters of interest, and 70% of the program funding still available. But so I felt it was maybe worth making a couple calls to a couple of the businesses that I'm familiar with, Mimi's and Vintage Dry Cleaners, So, I mean, some of the businesses through COVID have done okay, and some actually have done better, depending on the type of business. But these two particular businesses, they've just been hammered. In fact, the dry cleaner told me his business is down 90%. And Mimi's has been forced to shut down essentially by the state for the last few months. So, I mean, it's hard to run a business and stay open, for the long term when you're not bringing in any revenue. So this program, I think, while well-intentioned, it had some limitations on it that I think made it difficult for these businesses that are struggling to take advantage of it. And I think the changes, Nick, that you're proposing are good, and that lifting the cap for one. I know Mimi's, for example, put in a request for $1,500. I'm sorry, it was capped at $1,500, but she put in a request for $3,200 and this was at the beginning of the program, when she was looking at making some improvements in terms of the plexiglass barriers and wanted to put in some outdoor seating, but she was told, like, you were capped at 1,500, and so she gladly took the 1,500, but certainly there's a need for more funding there. And she said, she would love to be able to put in the outdoor seating for fire pits and everything that would accommodate outdoor dining that she was limited to. Of course, that's changed to a certain degree with the governor allowing 25% of occupancy inside. But still, I mean, these businesses won't be around if we can't help them. They only exist today because they are able to get funding from the federal government, and now the state government is providing some funding, and anything we can do at our level would be, of great value to them. I think I would love, 10,000 is great. Again, if we cap it at 1,500, it's not that there aren't many businesses that are going to meet the criteria that we have listed here. So I think if we can expand to the extent we can to bring in the dry cleaner and there may be other businesses out there, I don't know, but for sure, if you ask around and you find out what the business challenges are, and those businesses that are not doing well, where they could use some funding, I think you'll find that there's a greater need than an additional $10,000. And one last question I had is about the April 16th deadline. What is the deadline that we're facing? Why are we stopping this program at April 16th?
This was just a number simply to, try and get those eligible businesses to, try and apply, but certainly that's not a hard number. Obviously, the only hard number before then would be before the end of the budget, which our fiscal year ends June 31st. So this could be eligible all the way up to then, depending upon the amount left in the DDA budget.
Okay. Are we going to have another board meeting before that deadline?
Yeah, we will. We'll have our next meeting will more than likely it'll be regarding the DDA budget, where the DDA board will consider reviewing and adopting that budget. And that ends up going to the city council afterwards from there.
Okay.
The next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 4th.
Okay.
According to the,
I asked that we put this program back on the agenda for that meeting to see how things have gone in the interim, to see if how we've done in terms of making additional grants and helping those who really could use the help.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Ben, looks like you had one. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was wondering, especially in the case of the dry cleaner and Mimi's, are we able to allow the use of this budget for like rent or for income replacement for employees that may be laid off. I'm not sure how you would go about stipulating, because more people may be grasping at money if it can be used for, to pay on their lease. But in the case of Mimi's, I mean, I don't know if that building is necessarily owned. I would assume it's probably leased, but that could be something, if the owner of Mimi's or the dry cleaners is able to, submit something showing their losses are down and they could use that money to help keep their business in place. I mean, I could see that as being useful too, or just to recover income, because I think, to board member Richner's point, is that the longer this goes, the harder it is. It's going to be for these businesses to make like a leap forward to reopen their business in the future. So I think anything that we can do to make that possible. I mean, the reopening costs for a restaurant, I mean, obviously they're not going to be maintaining the same inventory of ingredients and things that they would during normal times, which also means that, when they go to reopen, there's going to be a huge cost incurred for them to reopen their business. And that could be the same for the dry cleaner. I don't know enough about that industry to say what supply costs will be, but I think one could easily say that there's money that is being, probably used to pay bills that would otherwise be profit or save for a rainy day in these businesses. And they're going to need every penny of that to keep their businesses either continuously open now or to reopen properly in the future. So I was just thinking if it would be possible to use it for rent or as like a, paycheck replacement program or something like that on a maybe a one-time or temporary basis, considering that some of the businesses are doing well and not applying, and some are obviously struggling right now. So, some of these businesses took a bet on that area. I mean, being in our DDA, so I think it's only right for us to support them when they supported us, through the years. So that's my comment.
Okay.
Yeah, I can speak on behalf of the ownership because I'm one of the owners of the building, and we have given rent relief, dramatic relief to the tenants that needed it to survive. I think if you look at the federal and state programs, which can, pretty good model at this point of how to do it, and they've basically said, for example, the state program, if your revenues are down 25% or more year to year, you're eligible for a grant. And that's the kind of test that maybe makes more sense than saying, hey, you got to put in an igloo or a fire pit or something. But I mean, I'm not trying to reinvent this program. I think it was, it's obviously, at this point, $7,000 is not a huge amount of money. It probably doesn't justify reinvention here, but I think if we could expand it to cover additional expenses, I think you'll see that 7,000 or 17,000 now. I think is what it sounds like we're going gobbled up pretty quickly, because there is a need. I mean, for sure, with some of the businesses that are just fighting for survival. And this pandemic is hopefully a once in a lifetime thing that we got to get through. But I think anything we can do to help these guys would be great.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback on that real quick, I was going to say, to answer your question, Nick, originally you asked, what I thought or what we thought about the additional 10,000. I would be in support of it. But I think to board member Richner's point, we need to figure out a way to get this money out there, and to people that can use it, because there is a need for it. And, you never want to say, you don't want to just let money go to waste, but we know that there's $17,000 worth of need, at least in the district, by businesses that are suffering. So if it's possible to use all 17,000 of that to some good, I think we should. So that's all I'll say.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
Yeah, I think that what the board members are suggesting, Nick, and I think this will end up being a question partly for Jake, is broader operational support categories that would be eligible for the program. So the DDA statute would be important. Also, I noticed that our chair, Dr. Hesberg, has joined us, and so welcome, Doctor.
Thank you. It's been a long day. I'm sorry to be late. I apologize.
Nick, if I could,
Yeah, please, Jake.
just to address Mayor Denner's point, I think maybe a solution to part of this, the discussion, is to broaden the program to any permissible use allowed by statute. In the statute's what dictates what we are allowed to use, or what you are allowed to use the DDA funds for, and we're restricted by that, but the statute is fairly broad. I have seen other instances where DDAs in other parts of the state have used DDA funds as rent relief or donated to rent relief funds or things like that. So I do think there's a broader application that we can still comport with the statute, be consistent with the law, and sort of open it up. And then to the extent anybody is applying for if it's going to be the $17,000 fund with a specific request, we should on most items be able to quickly approve that. If there's a question whether it's allowable, we can very quickly review that too and determine if that's permissible or not. But the statute is fairly broad in terms of assisting businesses within the DDA district. And so I think if we just, instead of limiting it to any list, if we just make it for any purpose allowable by statute, since we're sort of clearing out the remainder of the fund, that's just a suggestion that I think would fit within the DDA statute and maybe address some of the concerns.
I think that's a great idea, Jake. Certainly,
I think as long as the application is tied to the impact of the pandemic on the business.
Yeah, I think there's got to be some need test. I mean, the one thing I wouldn't want to see is someone says, well, I just, bought a new refrigerator, give us the money, and they're a business that's actually made money during the pandemic. You know what I mean? There really should be some economic need for the relief that they're getting, I would think.
Yeah, right now, the program, that last bullet point, other expenses as determined by the DDA director, gives the director some latitude to apply the statute properly. But I think that some guidelines in the perhaps on need would put everybody's mind at ease. I don't know what those how we might structure those guidelines, but at least tie it to business impact as a result of the pandemic.
Well, actually, I did take a look at the, and I don't know if this is just a summary of the language that's in the program somewhere, but there's a item here for other expenses as determined by the DDA director, which is very broad. I mean, the other items are very specific when we're talking about igloos and tables and fire pits, but then we suddenly get to this point of other expenses as determined by the director. I think that's probably too broad, but if we could put in other expenses incurred by a retail business that has lost 25% or more of their revenues year to year due to the pandemic. And I just came up with that language but there could be better language, but that would be the concept that I would propose that would be based on some kind of revenue test due to the pandemic. And that would weed out a lot of people that don't need the help. But would focus it where we want it, and that's what the businesses that do need the help. It gives you the latitude, Nick, or to, what you can sit down with them and say, hey, what do you want to do with this money, and make sure that it's for a legitimate purpose.
right.
May I jump in here a second?
Go right ahead, Zach. Yep.
I actually like that point that he made. They make that just like the state made that suggestion if your business is down 25%. And that obviously for the case of the vintage, I think that's the vintage client, the dry cleaner or Mimi's, I'm sure they both, as we all know, they've been closed for a long time and they have to sustain some employees. They got a PPP loan, but all that's still not enough. I agree. And they already qualify at 20%, but you also don't make sure the people who benefited from this, I'm going to include myself in here. Obviously, I wouldn't be applying for no loan. I'm not saying I'm going to apply for a loan, but excluding that, the people who benefited, I think that's a great point. And also with that, in addition, if they needed the funds business that do apply, to say we need a proof on what the needs are, if that fund, if those funds have been dispersed, if there's maybe a receipt of purchases for the goods that were bought. I mean, I don't want somebody going buying a car with this stuff. Not I'm saying they would, just in case you need a proof of purchase, and that purchase that was actually for Mimi's Bistros or the dry cleaners, if they are the ones who requested the funds, just so you can keep track of that money, where that money went, and did they really use that money for that business, or did it go somewhere else? Just that's if I may add.
Oh, and that's a good comment, Board Member Assaf. Certainly a means test requires an application with proof and, requires some work, but I think there's something we can certainly do. And I'll confer with the city attorney in broadening that application language in working with those businesses.
Should we try to structure some motion that gives the city manager or the DDA director some direction?
Yeah, I would move that we direct the director to review the application criteria for the COVID-19 reopening assistance program to include an economic needs test, and to I think you've said already that you're eliminating the cap. Do I have that right, Nick? That's already in the program?
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll
but
eliminate that.
yeah, as long as that's, well, I guess I'll include that in the motion, and also to eliminate any cap to give you some flexibility to address where the real needs are. So the two things are we're directing that there be an economic needs test and that the cap be removed on the expenditures.
Leah, do you have that motion, or do you need Board Member Richner to repeat that?
Good news is that these meetings are recorded, so she can always get the language.
Just as a quick point of procedure too, there was discussion about adding 10,000. That might want to, if that's the direction you want to go, I would add that to the motion as well.
Yeah, I'll take that as a friendly amendment.
But, if we're not going to have a cap, I think we got to be sure that everybody affected is aware of the program. And I think maybe we need a deadline, because if the money's gone before someone has time to apply, that's arguably not fair to them. So I think if we're going to not have a cap, I think we got to put a little more structure in it, rather than just have
I'm a little bit concerned about completely removing the cap. I'm not, perhaps we can ask the director to comment on that. If somebody can demonstrate a need for $10,000, how do you apply the discretion so we don't deplete the fund?
Well, and what if you have three people that legitimately need?
Of course, we do have a motion on the floor, but we don't have a second. So I suppose we should do that before we get further into the discussion.
Yeah, I'm willing to accept the friendly amendment to put a cap in there. 1,500 is too low. So, I mean, I just think it needs to be more realistic. I mean,
How about we set a cap of 3,500?
I think that sounds good. I like that. 3,500.
3,500. How does this apply to those who've received the grants to date? I mean, is that including the 1,500 they've already received, or and I don't even know who the other party is, but I know Mimi's is one of them.
My suggestion would be that those businesses that already did apply and received the 1,500, they would also be eligible for that 3,500. We've done the same over in the TIFA for those businesses that applied in our round one, and in round two, they were able to apply for that new round of funding.
I think you'll probably find, I mean, I don't know I don't know the situation with all the businesses in the DDA, But my guess is we're gonna have funds left over again if we put that. I think it's a little too low. But I may be wrong on that. Maybe we can revisit it at our next meeting, but I'd like to see maybe a $5,000 cap. I think that makes more sense. But I mean, we're talking $17,000 total, right, at this point?
That's correct.
As long as the economic needs test is there, I don't think there are going to be that many businesses able to justify the request for funding.
May I jump in for a second? I apologize for interrupting here. The problem you run into with having 5,000, what if 5 businesses apply and they each want 5,000? Legitimately, they're in need. How do you justify, well, then what happened? Then what do you do?
Yeah, so as we've had in the TIFA, and this will probably help. So when we did have businesses applying originally for $3,500, over 3/4 of those businesses did meet the $3,500 test. But there were those that were only applying for a certain amount of funding that might have been $2,000 or $1,000. So what I would suggest then is, we still cap it at $3,500, but certainly, let's say in the budget, there's maybe $4,000 left. We would announce to those businesses, we still have, this much funding left, for use. That'd be my suggestion, what we've done with TIFA.
Would they have to then reapply again to receive more funding, or would you?
That would be what we would ask for board member Saf is receipts, being able to see that those additional eligible expenses. So it would basically be the same application. We would just want to see, the documentation of those receipts and budget.
All right, well, based on that, I think I will offer the amendment to put in a cap of 3,500.
You might want to go back over the motion and then go for a second so that we can go forward.
So I think we're doing 3 things. We're asking for an economic needs test. We are authorizing a $10,000 additional supplement to the program. And we're asking for a $3,500 cap on an individual application. I think that's, I don't know. Did I get everything? There was one, did you offer, the city attorney offered one other caveat, didn't he?
No, I just made a suggestion about the 10,000.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't get to amend the motions anyway, so.
No.
So board member Richner, that's the motion. Is there a support for that motion?
Support.
Okay, any discussion? Leah, please call the roll. Looks like we might have any difficulties, so I'll call the roll. Board member Richner?
Yes.
Board member Carlisle?
Yes.
Board member Kennedy?
Yes.
Board member Wixon? Can you repeat, board member Wixon? We couldn't hear you there.
Oh, you're
Give us a thumbs up or thumbs
Yes,
down.
yes.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Board member Ocheb?
Yes.
Board member Corbin?
Yes.
Mayor Denner?
yes.
Board member Asaf?
Yes.
And Chairman Hesberg?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. I think Leah might be having some technical difficulties here. So we are now moving on to the public comment non-agenda items. We do not have any written public comment for non-agenda items. I'm going to give it a second here to see if Leah is back on. Leah, do we have any spoken public comment?
I'm back on. I apologize. I will confirm just really quick that board member Richner, your second statement of your amendment matched what I had written. I could hear you guys couldn't hear me. Director Seisland, I have no spoken comment at this time.
Okay. Chairman Hesberg, if you'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I so move that we adjourn the meeting and apologize for being late.
It's okay.
Is there a support?
Support.
Okay, Leah, please call the roll.
Board Member Carlisle,
Yes?
Board Member Corbin, Board Member Corbin, I think you're muted.
She is.
Still muted.
Just give me a
Yes.
thumbs up if you vote. Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Board Member Asaf,
Yes.
Board Member Ochop,
Yes.
Board Member Kennedy,
Yes.
Board Member Richner,
Yes.
Board Member Wixon,
Yes.
and Chairman Hesberg.
Yes.
I think you missed, I don't remember voting
my
on
gosh,
that. but I
Mayor
said-
Jenner, I'm
I'll say
sorry.
yes. I'll say yes.
Mayor Jenner, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
The meeting
Thank
is
you.
adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night,
Have
everybody.
a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.